Did you know that 90% of the business around the globe make these 5 mistakes when implementing Salesforce? Yes, you heard it right. 90% of the companies make these 5 mistakes. These critical 5 mistakes can lead to a lot of wasted time, blown out budgets, and sometimes even a complete failure of Salesforce implementation. Not to worry, in this video, we are going to look at those 5 mistakes in detail, and most importantly, are going to come up with solutions of how to avoid it. Hello there, my name is Raman and I'm from a company called Emerging Alliance, a certified Salesforce channel partner. In my experience of working with more than 100 plus companies implementing Salesforce for the past 15 years, we have come across a lot of companies and a lot of issues that companies face when implementing a Salesforce. We have seen companies where Salesforce has implemented on the company and the companies have benefited a lot, scaled their business because of Salesforce. And we have also witnessed companies where Salesforce was implemented miserably and it was a complete failure and people and business had to go back to their old systems. So compressing my entire 15 years of experience on giving you those 5 mistakes which can be avoided when implementing Salesforce is what we're going to do in this particular video. The first and the foremost mistake is lack of clear scope and business objectives. Many businesses just go ahead and dive into implementing a Salesforce without clearly defining their scope of work or business objectives. Now, this leads to a complete misalignment between what are the features and functionalities available in Salesforce versus the requirements of the business. And the consequences? Inefficient workflows, rather I say lengthy, unrequired workflows, many underutilized features of Salesforce, user discontentment, or the users are not happy. Now, since they're not happy, they start developing their parallel systems. And finally, working on Salesforce becomes more cumbersome than working without it. Now, let's see how to avoid this particular mistake. Conduct a thorough assessment or a feasibility study before even getting into implementation of Salesforce. Now, this feasibility study or assessment should be able to bring out the gaps between what is Salesforce features and functions standard available versus what is the requirement of the business. Once you do this feasibility study, review each of the gaps that has come out of the study very carefully. Now, moving forward, each of these gaps can have 3 consequences. The first one is you're fine with the gap and you move ahead. Number 2, you recognize the gap, but you have found a workaround in the standard features of Salesforce itself which can be used. And number 3 is where you opt for customizing if there's a gap. Please note that you should not be customizing all the gaps. An intensive customization of Salesforce would mean that you land up in creating a complicated system which will be very difficult to maintain in future, and even if you land up maintaining, you will be spending a lot of money maintaining such a complicated system. While we have seen that the requirements are mapped into Salesforce, it is also important that an application like Salesforce should be able to give you the kind of reports, dashboards and analytics that you require. Make sure that those also come out of Salesforce, and make sure that you do not land up having a parallel system or an Excel sheet where the dashboards, reports and analytics is calculated. It should come from the same system, Salesforce, where the data is entered. Now, these are few tips which, when followed, can ensure that you can avoid the first mistake, which is clarity in scope and business objective. The second mistake is insufficient training and user adoption. You might have done a successful assessment, a successful feasibility study, identified the gaps, and excellently done the technical implementation of Salesforce. But if you have not done an extensive training, or if you have failed in user adoption, then it's of no use in successfully implementing Salesforce, which will not be used or adopted by the users. Remember, employees may resist or refuse to use a system like Salesforce if they don't find it conducive, or if they don't see a value in entering data into Salesforce or using it. The consequences? Obviously, the productivity will go down. Employees will find reasons for delaying a process. Employees will start blaming Salesforce for not doing your work. Not only that, there'll be a lot of inconsistencies in the data entry and the reports and analytics generated. And as mentioned earlier, the user starts creating his own parallel system and starts doing double work, maintaining parallel system as well as Salesforce. Now let's look at how to avoid this particular problem. Have a very clear change management strategy. Now this change management strategy seems to be a very out of the world business jargon, but this is very critical. Whenever a company tries to move from a legacy system to a system like Salesforce, there is bound to be lack of user adoption, and a management or a great executive committee should know where are the places where the resistance will be there, where are the places where will be less adoption, and should have a strategy of addressing it either by counseling the users or by replacing the users or forcing it, whichever is correct as per the situation. Make sure that you invest in a very comprehensive training program. Training is very essential, because each of the user should know how to operate Salesforce. Make sure that you have a great training plan. Once the training plan is done, make sure that you give enough time to the users to practice in a dummy system or a sandbag system, and ensure, if possible, can you have a test, qualify the users on their learning, or ask the users to show a live demo of various scenarios available in Salesforce, which will help the management or executive committee to gain confidence that their users are capable on their own to operate a system like Salesforce. Don't just force Salesforce on the users. Make sure that you collect their feedback. Make sure that there's a collaborative approach. Whenever there's a feedback given or an improvement given or a suggestion given, try to ensure that that's implemented in Salesforce, because of which the users feel interested, feel participated in implementing a solution like Salesforce. The last but not the least, make sure that the benefits of using Salesforce or the advantages of using Salesforce is narrated very clearly to the users with real life stories or success stories of other customers. Now, if these tips are followed, you can ensure that the second mistake is addressed, which is insufficient training and user adoption. The third mistake that companies make is extensive customization of Salesforce. While there's no doubt that Salesforce is a highly customizable application, but that doesn't mean that you should land up customizing to an extent where maintaining such a customized system or the investments of making such customizations go out of your hand. Now, this is a mistake that most of the customers make. They ensure that all the requirements, all the users' requirements are put into Salesforce and they are customized, and all the standard features are completely ignored. And that's a complete no-no. Now, the consequences of heavy customization is that users or the company implementing Salesforce will not be in a position to give a detailed scope for all the customizations that they do. So most of the customization starts hanging in air. Customization would mean that the implementation timeline will increase, and because of that, the cost of implementation will also increase. Customizations mean that it's not coming out of the standard Salesforce offering, and there are people involved, there would be bugs, and there would be validations, corrections, and iterations. One another consequence is when you do an extensive customization, the user interface becomes very complicated. And when you complicate the user interface, it means that the adoption among the user becomes very difficult. So when new users come in, for them to learn a complicated user interface is always difficult. Now let's see how to avoid this. It is always advisable that you handle customizations in a phased manner. Ensure that the standard features available in Salesforce and the most critical customizations or customizations which are a dire need are done in phase 1, and then you start prioritizing your customizations so that your high prioritized customization come in next phase and the low prioritized customization come in the later phase, and so on. What is very critical is you get the Salesforce up and running and stabilize the system first, and then go ahead for customizations. By doing this, what happens is the user or the business becomes more mature in giving a customization requirement. Without using a system, when you start giving customization requirement, you do not know where are you heading with the customization. And that's the biggest problem and mistake that people commit. Make sure that you follow this policy of keep it simple and stupid. I call it the KISS policy. Keep it simple and stupid, so that the sustainability of an application like Salesforce is quite long and the user adoption is phenomenal. Focus on process simplification before automating any of the workflows available in Salesforce. Another key point is Salesforce App Exchange. So when you're trying to customize anything in Salesforce, please remember that there is a marketplace in Salesforce called as App Exchange, where Salesforce, being in business for more than 15-20 years, has been deployed in multiple customers around the globe. They would have had the same issue or the same customized requirement that you needed, and they would have developed a solution and put it in the marketplace. Go see if your customization requirement is available as a standard solution in App Exchange Salesforce Marketplace. And if it's available, don't waste your time in reinventing the wheel. Take those tried, tested customization solutions available in the marketplace and deploy it in your environment. The last one, but not the least, ensure that all the customizations are properly documented, so that if there's any change that you need to make to the customization, you know why is it made, what are the changes made. The document for the customization should be clearly available for sustainability of the customization. Now, these tips will ensure that you can overcome the third mistake, which is extensive customization. The fourth mistake that companies commit is neglecting data quality and migration. Remember this quote: garbage in is garbage out. Poor data quality during the migration process is a very common pitfall in Salesforce implementation. Most of the business and companies rush towards moving their legacy data or old data into Salesforce without properly cleansing it, standardizing it, and optimizing it. Consequences: there are a lot of duplicate data available in the new system. Might it be contacts, email address, or phone numbers, or opportunity details. These duplicate lead to a lot of inconsistency in a new application like Salesforce, which starts rolling. And this becomes very dangerous when it gets into real-time operation. The next consequence is, obviously, when the data is wrong, it's duplicate, it's inconsistent, then the reports and the dashboard and analytics coming out of Salesforce is also wrong. All these consequences put together leads to a point where Salesforce as a system becomes a system which cannot be trusted. And when it is not trusted, then companies put an end to it or a full stop to it and remove it. Let's see how to avoid this particular mistake. Start preparing for the data migration activity even before finalizing a Salesforce deal. What do I mean? Now, you have decided that you want to go ahead with Salesforce. In parallel, what you can do is you can start preparing the data which needs to be migrated from your legacy system to a Salesforce system. Start getting those Excel uploadable templates where you can fill your customer details, contact details, opportunity details for uploading. Now, this action will ensure that you're well prepared upfront in the implementation cycle rather than running around when it comes to implementation or go live date. When filling out these templates or when migrating this data, you definitely have something called as mandatory details required in the masters. Now, ensure that all those mandatory details are given without any fail. Don't have this particular excuse that let me give blank columns right now and when it comes in the real life scenario, I'll fill it. No, that's not going to work. You will have so many data to be filled in the real-time operation that you will miss them all. Avoid giving data which are doubtful, which are very old and not in use. For example, don't go a customer detail who has done business with you 10 years before and doesn't have any relevance as of today, or he's not a repeat buyer. If the customer comes back, you can always create it manually while in operation. Conduct a thorough data audit by an independent team before giving the data to the Salesforce implementation partner. Make sure that you standardize the data by removing all the duplicates. Now, once you have done all these things, it is not just enough. You will have to make sure that you have clear policy in place or authorizations in place for creating this data in future in Salesforce. So have clear policies, governance rules, authorizations of who's authorized to create or not create data, and while creating a data, what are the mandatory fields and what are nice to have fields, making sure that you have a controlled policy or framework for creating data in future in Salesforce so that the problems that you have faced in the legacy system doesn't happen in Salesforce also. Do this as part of the implementation of Salesforce. Now, these tips that I have explained will definitely help you in overcoming the fourth mistake, which is neglecting data quality and migration. The fifth and the last mistake is ignoring ongoing maintenance and scalability. Now, implementing Salesforce is not a one-time project. Please keep this in mind. It requires a regular maintenance. Maintenance not just to sustain the system in place, but to make sure that it is regularly upgraded, The new features implemented by Salesforce is adopted so that you move from one level to next level. It's not that you stay at the same level where it was implemented. So it's not a one-time project, but it is a continuous improvement project. Many companies globally fail to do this, and they have serious problems. Consequences: definitely outdated workflows and features, reduced performance of Salesforce over a period of time, difficulties in scaling Salesforce when it has a need to be scaled. Now, how to avoid these? The first and foremost thing is have a dedicated administrator for Salesforce or a team for maintaining Salesforce. Now, if you don't have a capability to have an in-house administrator or team, ensure that you find a good partner who can maintain the system for you. And during maintenance, please make sure that you check these following things. Number one, are you on the most recent change level of Salesforce? What are the most recent features of Salesforce which has been implemented in your company? Are you adopting the recent releases, recent features, recent functionalities of Salesforce? Regularly review and upgrade and update workflows, analytics, dashboards, AI capabilities, and automations along with your evolving business. Now, these are few tips which will make sure that you avoid the fifth mistake, which is ignoring ongoing maintenance and scalability. Now, if you're a business or a company planning to implement Salesforce, or even for that matter, you already have a Salesforce and planning to optimize Salesforce, this video, I believe, should have been a great watch for you. If you need help in any of these areas that we have spoken, please make sure that you get in touch with us. Our contact details are available in the description. We'll be more than happy to have a one-on-one discussion with you and find out a solution. Our aim is to make sure that your precious money invested on a system like Salesforce really pays off, and you use Salesforce to really grow and scale your business. Thank you. Look forward to meeting you once again on a very interesting video like this on Salesforce.